So I come from this family from Suriname, and when we get together, and it is important, I think this is important, we always mark it with a song. So guess what? We're going to sing a song. Yes! You just ate, your stomach is full, so let me wake you up. Okay, so I start with we kong, and you answer with ja. Okay, then I say again, we kong, and you say ja. Very good. And then we all say we kong, ja. Simple? Yes? Ready? Okay. We kong, ja. Family, we kong, ja. We kong, ja. We kong, ja. Brother Sisa, we kong, ja. We kong, ja. So we kong means we come, and ja means right here, right now. And that is important. It's important that you mark that you took the time to be here. There are people who wanted to be here that didn't make it. So we take just that moment to mark that. And I put this picture up because it's cool. But also, I used to have a dance company, and our signature piece was creating spaces without apologies. And my son, 17 at the time, drew this for us. And yes, he's a great artist. And and if you talk about empowerment, it feels good to have like a superhero. I would recommend it. I would highly recommend it. So since this is about empowerment, and creating spaces without apologies, that was our slogan. So that's why I put that picture up. So we are talking about decolonization. And so she already told you a little bit about myself. I was born here and grew up here, went to high school, and even though I did very well, I never felt quite at home. And so, when you would speak on that, they would say, well, go back to your, how were we here? They still here today. So anyway, I never felt at home, so at age 18, I left. Because at least in the United States, when they say go to your country, I have a point of reference. But here, this was supposedly my home, so I left. And so I'm a psychologist, I'm an anthropologist, I'm a dancer, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, and I'm also a Lyman T. Johnson scholar, and I'll say something a little bit about that later. And so I also want to start by saying I love learning, and I love to work with students and support students and bring out the best in them. And I say that, but it's also a mantra, because sometimes this place, this academic world, is not as nurturing, is not as welcoming, is not as supportive, but I love learning and I love my students, and that's why I'm here. Yeah. And so when it comes to decolonizing, the nice thing is this is an audience, and I don't even need to talk about the paradigms and all, because you all already know, which is great. But so then when you go into academia, there are alternative paradigms, and when you find them, you're just like, yes! And there's Chicana studies, and there's feminist, and there is black feminists, and there's red pedagogy, and you find them, you're like, yes! And there are these alternative voices that you can find yourself in, but all those voices are on the margin, right? And so if you use them too much, you will get penalized for that. So they are out there, but you have to decide how you're going to, you use it to feed yourself. You can't necessarily use it, to advance your career, because, they will punish you for doing that. And so I want to read something to you when we talk about decolonizing. Linda Tuhiwai Smith, I know most of you might know her, she's Maori from New Zealand. She says, and she writes, decolonizing methodologies is her thing. She says, it's not enough to be critical, you need to be transformative. So according to her, in order to decolonize, we need to use our knowledge for social justice purposes, promote self-determination, produce counter-narratives, hold systems of authority accountable, work with and empower communities, ground stories in local, historical, and cultural contexts, disrupt hegemonic, etc., etc., etc. Right? Now there's some others here that I use. We have Patricia Hill Collins, Irma McLaurin, who's an anthropologist, Cheryl Rodriguez, and they talk about you should do activism and you should write to empower your people. Nothing wrong with that. I found Burke, Cropper, and Harrison. They're from England. They say, as a black woman in the academy, you should engage, share personal experiences, name oppressive processes, utilize existing policies while creating new policies, place yourself in strategic positions, network, mentor, challenge the oppressive system, and so on and so on. So, you know, decolonizing is tiresome work.
Yes.
It is a lot. Oh, because besides all of that, I'm also supposed to write and publish and do all of that stuff, right? So it's like, well, dang, I can't do all of that. You know, I can't do all of that and drop dead from high blood pressure. I mean, seriously. You know, so there's a lot that comes with it. And so my question goes, and then you have black feminist anthropologists who say you're in the margin. And so whenever you open your mouth, whatever you say is political. You cannot just talk. Really? Because sometimes maybe I just want to talk, right? And so I thought about that. So, you know, this is a lot. I'm not sure I can do all of that. I'm not sure I should do all of that. And there are some of us in the academy who choose not to do that. There's some of us that shoot, I got my spot, leave me alone. You know, there's, you know, and that's their right to do that. So if you choose to engage, you know, in decolonizing, you know, you have to be very clear about what it is that, you know, that you're starting to do, because this stuff will kill you. Yes. You know, and I'm just being straight with you here. So you often place in a position, even if you don't want to, but because of who you are, your presence matters. And because of who you are, there's things that will come your way, and you have to choose how you are going to respond. I will tell you this, I was hired, Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, 25 minutes from Ferguson. You might have heard of Ferguson. That's where I lived until very recently. And when they hired me, they were looking for somebody who was a specialist in Africa and in African American culture. And I was like, you know, it's not my specialty, but I can talk on it. So what I can do the African diaspora. I can do that, but I'm not an Africanist per se. They said, fine. My first day at work, head of the department calls me and she says, you know what? Our students do not know the term African diaspora, so I think you should change it. And then she said, and you know, my husband graduated with a degree in anthropology 10 years ago, and he's never heard of it, so I really think you should change it. That was my first day at work, so what the? Okay. Right? My first day at work, it's like, oh my goodness. So I was like, okay. So I went to my office. I did the research. I found all these top universities that do African diaspora, you know, and I made a list and highlighted it, printed it out. I said, you know what, there are 8 universities, these are the top universities in the country that do African diaspora. And I cannot come up with another term, so you let me know what you want me to do. Oh, I guess we'll leave it like that. Okay, now we can move on. So, you know, I could have gone off, but it was my first day. So I chose not to do that. And you know, and so at that moment, that's 2 hours of my life that I wasted because I had to do the research, because I had to make a point. You know, but that's the choice that you have to make. I went to my first American Anthropological conference in 2001, and it was very important to me because, again, about this idea of having to make strategic choices. And I went to the black anthropologists, and all they talked about is, we want to be published like the white people. We want to do this like the white people. And they, and, you know, and they have their rights. I was like, well, okay. Then I went to the Native Americans, and then the Native Americans were like, when these anthropologists come, our community should be better for them having been there. They cannot just come into our communities and do as they please. So we need to set up a protocol. Like, oh, I need to be with these people over here, right? And so I really connected with the Native Americans, and I didn't connect that much with the black anthropologists. And out of that, I got a mentor to this day. So that's since 2001. Another thing, there was an anthropologist, she's a feminist, her name was Ruth Bahar. And when she spoke, one of the things she says, I write in a way so that my mother will understand. And I was like, yes, right? And when I wrote my dissertation, I gave it to my mother, and she put her feet up and she read my whole dissertation, and she got it. And I was like, Yes, that's who I write for, right? And so that's something that was affirmed by hearing that woman speak. And then the third thing about that conference, and I'm telling a big secret now, but they have this conference every year. They always have a secret session. They have a secret meeting in some hotel room. It's not advertised anywhere. And the black anthropologists get together and they just talk about the racism they experience. And it is horrifying. I swear, by the time you leave, you're like, why would I want to do this, right? But that once a year, they get together and they just let it all hang out. And it's like church, it's like therapy, and we get it all out, and 50, 60, 70% of what they've talked about I have experienced. So I'm glad they have shared it. But after about 2 years, I don't need to go a third year. But we need to create those spaces. I love learning, and I love my students, and that's why I'm here, but that's also the reality. That's also the reality. And I'm glad that they told me, let me tell you what it's really like. Let me tell you some of the things that you will encounter. Students who will question you. Faculty who will question you just because of who you are and just because of what you look like. And so, just to be present is important. Just to speak is important. When I came to the university, and again, you're excited, you get this job, and then you have the university, Americans are very good, like, this is who we are, you're part of us, you're part of the E, you're part of, they're really good with that, right? And so they show you a certain picture of who they are. And then you have your departments, like, well, this is actually who we are. And then the black faculty takes you aside. I was like, let me tell you what it's really going to be like. And the first thing they told me, said, well, we know you're not going to want to be here, but we need you here, so we need to figure out a way for you to stay because our students need you. You're not going to want to stay here. And after that first day, I understood what they were talking about. So some of us in the U.S. will go to what we call HBCUs, historically black colleges. Yep. And so culturally, yes, you can get nurtured there. Resources, it's And so I know people who are there, they are professors, they are deans, they have like 3 or 4 different hats. And so it's great that those colleges are there, but also know those colleges were specifically created by white people. It was like, okay, we're going to finally allow you to have some education, but do it over there. That's how those colleges were created. And so in terms of resources, the resources aren't there. So it's always a struggle, right? And believe me, when you go there, it's like, people who think like me, people who look like me, right? It's what, so that is nurturing. But at the same time, I know what it is like at these predominantly white institutions and what my students go through because I've been through it. And so I need to be there. When I started out that first year, I had to co-teach with this person, and I had to teach methods. So she said, come to my class so you can see who's going to teach this, she's going to teach a part, I'm going to teach a part. Okay, fine. So these students did a study on food, and they were looking at food and gender. So they gave this presentation, and I was like, okay. So, at the end it's like, how come you're talking about food and not ethnicity? Because I would think, somebody's German, they might drink a lot of beer. I mean, ethnicity, when it comes to food, plays a big part. And she said, well, there's not that many of those, so I told them not to do that. He's an anthropologist. There's one black girl in the class. Next day, I get an email from this person. She says, yes, I generally don't deal with ethnicity, but now that you're here, we probably can reintroduce the subject. This is an anthropologist. This is the person I work with. So this girl, I invited her in my office. I said, come and talk to me. I said, what was that like for you when she said that? And she just looked at me and the tears just started rolling. She said, that's nothing. I can tell you about this class, this class, this class. And she just cried, right? So my presence was important. I had people lined outside my door. I had the black students, I had the LGBT students, I had the international students, I had the Army veterans, I had the, I know the word got out, right? And they would come and they would cry. So your presence matters. When I was in graduate school, there was one black female professor, and and she was very quiet. And one day she called me in her office. She said, "Sit down." Okay. And she was in, not even in my department. She says, "You're a single parent. Have you ever thought about becoming a college professor?" Not really. She said, "You should think about it." She says, I have children. You know, I don't start work until 10 o'clock. I can take my children to school. I'm only here 2 days a week. I have my vacations off. As a single parent, you should consider becoming a professor. That changed my life. That changed my life. You know? She took the time to talk to me just because your presence matters. And so again, when it comes to decolonizing, there's so many things that we have to do, but those small acts, what do you call them? What is it? Small micro revolutions. Those small acts to be present for somebody, to encourage them, you know, to me, you know, those things are just as much about decolonizing. Because we cannot all be on the front. We cannot all be kicking in doors. You know, some of us will do the small things. Let me encourage you. Let me speak to you. You know, let me let you know that you deserve to be here. And so, you know, make sure I leave. You know, so when it comes to decolonizing, another thing that I want to say, it comes at a price. You know, like I said, it adds a lot. It comes at a price. And so you have to be strategic because you cannot be hit in the face every single day. You're gonna quit. You're gonna give up. It comes at a price. One time, I had applied for some grant, and I didn't get it, which is fine. And that same lady with the ethnicity, you know, she was on the committee, and so she took me aside, and she said, you know, you didn't make it, but that's because you did so and so and so. Well, I had gone to the workshop. And I did exactly what they told me to do. So I said, well, you know, I said, then you all wasted my time. And I do not appreciate people wasting my time. I don't mind not getting it, but I did exactly what they told me. And so, you know, the worst thing you can do is be an angry black woman, right? Yeah. That's the worst thing you can do. And she told me, well, you know, well, you should be happy you have a job, you know. Not everybody has a tenure. I said, okay. The next 2 days later, the head of my department, I'm going to assign you a different, she was also my mentor, I'm going to assign you a different person because, you know, well, you're kind of unapproachable. I am not unapproachable. I am not unapproachable because these people are lined up outside my door every day. Now, the fact that you're scared of me when I get angry or when I show my emotion is your issue, but I am not unapproachable. You know, and I didn't want to work with the lady anyway, so that's fine, but just to show you, doors will be closed, right? Access to funding, whatever, doors will be closed. So you have to be strategic and make choices about what it is that you're going to do. And so, you know, and when it comes to, you know, sometimes when we talk about, I know racism is a big part, but I want to say this. We all have drank the poison Kool-Aid. All right? It's not just about what white people are doing to black people. We all drank the Kool-Aid. Some of my biggest critics were people that look like me. Why your hair is like that? Why you gotta wear clothes like it? Don't you know where you are now? Can't you just, you know? Do you know what we gave up to be? And here you go, being yourself. It was black people that told me that. Now that you have this degree, you should really think about getting a white husband. It was black people that told me that. I'm just, you know, we all drank the Kool-Aid, right? And so I was asked to share a little bit of some words of encouragement, especially for my young people, about how do you decolonize. And believe it, it's not like I have the answers. These are just from my personal experiences. Is it still up? Yes. Okay, so all I can say, the choice I made for myself, I couldn't do those 50 things to decolonize, but what I chose is I choose to work with communities. I choose to use my academic skills to work in communities. There's a price for that in the academy. It's nice that you do that, but you know, why you work with those people when you can really make a career? But that's my choice, right? I choose to be there for my students. It is my goal for young people to get their degree, or even if they don't get their degree, but to have some sense of self-worth by the time they finish. And to find their strengths so they can do whatever it is they need to do after they get out of the university. That's my goal. And then my third goal is to be present. And so when I'm present, I don't run. Now, the fact that you might have a problem with that's your issue, but I'm here. And so when it's time for me to speak, I speak. So I quickly, I know I'm out on time. How do I do this? Oh. Here? Yes. So I had, and again, these are just some thoughts as they came up for myself. So number one, I told you I'm an anthropologist, so you have to understand the culture and the role of culture. The role of the, you know, when I go somewhere, it's like, how do things work here?
Yeah.
How is the culture? And then you can decide
Yeah.
how you're going to go in. Don't just kick the door, and the door was shut on you, just, you know. But there are ways. You have to understand the culture of the institution, but also the culture of the people. You know, this institution didn't just pop up overnight. This 400, 500 years in the making that you're up against. So you have to understand the culture. And also, it will help you to not take things so personally. Because I know where you're coming from. I know what you've been conditioned, how you've been conditioned, right? And understand this is just one institution in a whole link of, you know, our banking system, our healthcare system, all these things are linked. So it's not just about this one institution that's a certain way. It's about all these that reinforce each other. If you get a degree and think this way, then you can work over here. And if you work over here, then you can go over there and you can get those kinds of services. So if you don't want to play, you don't find housing. Do you understand? If you don't want to play, you might be homeless. You might not be able to find a job. So you have to understand how these institutions are linked, right, and are part of our culture. So know what you are up against. Okay. We don't talk a lot about our spirituality. We talk about it as a subject. You know, but I know for me, you have to know who you are. You have to know who you are and whether you are Buddhist, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're a Christian. If that, you know, who are you in this world? How does that feed you? You have to be clear about that. I come from a culture and I believe that my ancestors walk with me, right? And so I might stand here by myself. I know they got my back. So when people start acting crazy, I don't have to, you know, I don't have to go there because I got this. But that's my spirituality. I don't know what it is for you. But you do, you know, we don't talk about that enough. But how are you in the world? What feeds you? And do you need to revisit that? Because in this institution, that's, you know, we don't talk about that stuff, right? We're all about the intellectual, you know, but spiritually, who are you? I told you Lyman T. Johnson. Lyman T. Johnson was born in 1906. Lyman T. Johnson is the person who integrated University of Kentucky. Because of him, I was able to go there because I received a Lyman T. Johnson fellowship. This man, 1948, there was a law in Kentucky. Blacks and whites couldn't go to the university together, so they had to go somewhere else. He went to court. He got to integrate it. Lyman T. Johnson, they allowed him on campus, but not in the classroom. So he had to walk and sit outside the building. They would open the windows, and that's how he would study. They burned crosses on the lawn wherever he had to walk. So I stand on this man's shoulders. Do you get that? So I cannot whine about I don't want to do my homework, because this man sat outside a window while the cross was burning on the lawn so that I could get this education. Right? So when you get that, then you also understand I have a responsibility for those that follow behind me. I owe this to this man, right? And I had the honor of meeting him. He passed away when he was 91, but I had the honor of meeting him, all right? So in this academic, I love learning and I love my students. You know, I have to keep saying that. So, but academia is a very intellectual space. And so you're taught not to go here. We don't do this, right? So the moment feelings come up, you know, we don't want to go there, right? But our feelings, our emotions are very much part of what we do. And so, you know, when it comes to racism, we can make it an intellectual, it's not an intellectual experience, it hurts me here, right? And then the fact that I can distance myself from you, that's about here, right? And so, as long as I make it intellectual, then I can distance myself. But if I force myself to go here, things start to change and things start to happen. So you need to be aware of that, and we need to create spaces in this academic setting where we need to teach people how to deal with emotions and not to fall apart, you know? And I know when it comes to racism especially, you'll be all right. You will be just fine. You're not going to implode. You're not going to explode. I will sit with you when you go through, and then let's talk. But you have to take people there because we are so scared and we have not been taught, right? You will be placed in a position to doubt yourself time and time again. And I like to say it gets better after you get your degree. It does not. Graduate school, it's a weeding process. You become a professor, unfortunately, it does not get better. So again, that's why it's very important that you know who you are, because they will make you doubt yourself time and time again. Okay. Make wise choices. If you're going to do all the things on that list, you're not going to last long. So make, what am I going to fight for? Choose that and work on that. Where am I going to put my energy in? I will do anything for my students. They know that, right? And I don't care if you're blonde hair, blue eyes, wheelchair. My students know, Mama don't play, right? I've taken them to Suriname. I've taken them to Africa. And I send them home too. I'm the mama, you act up, I'll send your butt home. They know I don't play, but at the same time, I will protect you, I will defend you, I will guide you in your learning. But that's the choice that I make. Okay? And when you make those choices, know that there are repercussions. Right? Know that there are repercussions. I've chosen to focus on community work. Because of that, some of my stuff does not get published. That's the choice that I make. Where do I put my energy? Okay? Another thing, accommodate those that are not as strong as you. Not everybody's in the front of the rally. Somebody's in the back making sandwiches. So you can be at the rally. And that sandwich maker is very important because you had that rally for a while, you get kind of hungry. Right? So don't overlook the people that are quiet. Sometimes people want to help, but I might not be as vocal. There's room for you, there's place for you. You need strength in numbers, but make sure that you include as many people as you can. Okay. Be present. I already said that. Your presence matters. Your voice matters. Definitely more. Find your allies, right? And they might not necessarily look like you. The person closest to me that I talk to almost every day is a white woman. She's my sister. All right, this person sitting right here, stand up, Marcel. It's my brother since I was 13 years old. Thank you. I call him when I get upset. I call her. I also have people who look like me. But don't just, find who your allies are. All right? I know, I'm sorry. He didn't expect that. You have to process what comes at you. We cannot just be focused on what it is that I have to do. You're going to get slapped, you're going to get beat down, you're going to get insulted. You have to deal with that somehow. You have to process that. And one of the first things you have to do, you have to learn how to breathe. Because when we get upset, when we get scared, the first thing you do is, right? And your brain shuts down and everything. And that's what people do. They don't even say raise their like, just breathe, you'll be fine. All right, but really, you stand there and you breathe, and that's where you start from. Use your anger and hurt as fuel. Don't let it sit and be bitter about it. As you can see, I can get very passionate. And I do get angry, but but it's time to get to work. You use it as your fuel. Learn to forgive. Oh my God, she said it. Yes, I forgive every day. You're gonna have to, or it will kill you. You're going to have to, or it will kill you, right? If people would know better, they do better. I don't know if that's always true, but anyway. Right? Okay. You find your mentors and you find your teachers. Ask and they will come. And seriously, you can look it up. You need help. You cannot do it by yourself, but there are mentors, there are teachers out there who are willing to help. You find them. I found my Native American mentor, I found him at that conference. All right. And the last one. Okay. So again, you might not be able to do all the things on the list, but you can choose what it is you're going to do. You might make a small difference. What you have done so far, you might not see the end result. That might be the next cohort of students that will take that up, right? And and you make your contribution, then you have to let it go. And then you have to let it go. And then you leave it for the next person. If you hold on, I wish I could have, I know. Let's keep it moving, right? So you do what you can and you do your best in that moment. And then you're going to have to let it go. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was my
Yeah.